Sounds it's your professor. We're going to jump into some really fun things today. We're going to jump into and look at if I can get up what I want. Yes, okay, cool. So we got it all set up here. Um, we're dealing with world rock and world music this week, and looking at it from a rock lens, and it got me thinking about a lot of stuff. And the section of it is coloring rock, right? And it's and there's a strong tendency to lean on just looking at Mexican rock, um, what else? I mean, very few people talk about native rock at all. But I mean, there's a strong, real important bend about talking about Mexican American rock, Latin rock, those kind of things, and then Japanese or K-pop and things. And coincidentally, we're gonna deal with that a little bit today, as well as a Mongolian rock band. But I was thinking about this because other people would play it really safe and just kind of stick to like Scandinavian countries, and or they would just jump back and look at some of the different territories of Africa, which we talked about as like why and what's the importance of it, as well as what's the necessity or what's the means to not get pigeonholed and kind of stuck into just talking about those areas, even though it wouldn't be far and off the plate to do so. But I think if we do, it's again we'd have to deal with each of the different regions of Africa. We have to deal with North Africa, South Africa, Eastern and Western Africa, because they're all different. They don't all have the same sounding reliability, or sounding culture. And then we'd have to deal with street culture. We'd have to deal with like the urbanization, as well as immigrant migrant community and whatnot, which then got me thinking about uh, why certain cultures come up really fast when we talk about these. Like specifically when you say, okay, we're dealing with somewhat of world music, we're going to be exploratory, and we're going to deal with Russian music. So why is it that you only deal with punk? Why is it that anything that comes out of Russia is only punk rock? And I mean, if we want to look at, I even thought about like dealing with Middle Eastern rock music this week, which we might, I haven't completely written it out, the equation yet. But oftentimes when you look at those things that are coming up, it's like, okay, so why is it only then traditional music, that's kind of wrapped up inside of what would be quasi, rock music, which is actually just more pop, you know and then why is it then when you talk about African music is like Afro pop, it comes up and it's like usually just EDM, electronic dance music. Why do these things just keep popping up, which we're probably going to have to explore before the week is out. It's just one of the genres we might have to look at. What is the digital enfranchisement, the digital franchise of rock music, because we've come to a very interesting relationship and point in our study, is that now rock music is being exploited on a larger level and in nature. And so the fingerprints and what we could actually then qualify and see as rock music's firm grip, if you will, and its signature on side of these different musical genres doesn't necessarily play the same. It doesn't. And and so because of that, this is what got me thinking about a lot of these different practices, is that rock music and music in general has a very interesting diasporic nature to it. Now, diaspora just means a movement, right? It actually refers to a movement of a people, and it's done for social reasons, political, religious. It's and it can be forced, it can be and openly done, but by and large, when people engage, sorry, a diaspora, it means that they're moving from one territory to another, and specifically they're looking for They're looking for solace. They're looking, for survival techniques, and they're looking, to be able to perpetuate and continue their cultural, relationships and practices that they have. Again, it could be politically, it could just be culturally, where it just kind of follows a regular typical migration pattern. um, but definitely for religious means, we see that a lot, that comes up across the country. But it's to avoid, those kinds of persecutions, and to find sanctuary, and solace inside of another territory that's an alien, foreign territory that's there. um, but it's a mass migration of people, and it's from one location to another. So we talk about the African diaspora coming in. It's because of the slave trade coming from West Africa specifically, but also all the different regions of Africa over to the New World. We talk about then, you could say, there's a diaspora of fast food chains, that's gone around the world. Well, music has the same thing. But typically, when we talk about music's diaspora, this is the fun part. Okay, we talk about it with two different ways, but we don't. But we, meaning, typically those that are outside of the musicological, grain or mill, don't see the relationship to them. We talk about music's diaspora from the UK over to the United States, but most importantly, and the one that people are the most comfortable with, is we talk about the American or the Western, diaspora of music around the world. So the argument can be brought up is that, is Western or American music, if you want to read it in that light, become the colonizing musical force around the world? Is that really the strong fingerprint that's there? And does that mean then that English has to be the lingua franca, the common language in which people have to sing in? And is that the standard, the marker in which people want to be represented in and inside of? And people will answer yes, and people will answer no. And this goes back to a really big term that we've talked about, in the past, but it needs to be brought up again, because we're looking now and saying, like, where is rock's fingerprint? Where is the hand of rock inside the music that we're studying? And that would be, appropriation. Is that what is the cultural appropriation of rock music? And, is it now assimilated? Is American rock music being assimilated, by these different cultures that are using it around the world? And again, like I said, most people, and that's I gave you one of the discussions that deals with Latin music, Latine, and specifically, a female Latin band, because that's kind of an important voice to hear. Excuse me, because it's one that doesn't get brought up enough. So where is the fingerprint? Where is the handprint? Where is and what's going on? Excuse me, inside of music, rock music's identity on the global scale. And so that's why I wanted to bring up these different kinds of things. So what we're going to do is, rather than just holding down and weighing down the article that we're reading, that's looking at, Japanese music that's read in J-pop, through Singapore, and its reference and identity, I got three different bands that I want to look at, and we'll probably just get through one or two of them, at most. But I'll drop all of them in the notes and everything, so people can see them. But I want to look at the band, One OK Rock, Uhui, and Scandal. And one of them is a J-pop, one of them is a K-pop, and then one of them is Mongolian rock. Yep. So we're gonna go there. And the J-pop band is, oh, actually, I'm sorry, they're both K-rock. So I took off my list the J-pop one. So One OK Rock, is a K-rock band, a Korean rock band, and it's all guys. The Scandal is a K-rock band. It's all female. And then Uhui is the Mongolian band. And it's that one's really interesting, because they use their traditional instruments inside of, and along with Western instruments, playing their stuff. So I'm going to drop the links, like I said, inside the notes, so you can have them and watch it and review them. But it really brings up the interesting topic and discussion of where is okay, if the diaspora, is it really only going in one direction? Is it going just from the west over to these different cultures, or is it going is because then there's no ramification coming back? Because if it was, you would have no problem turning on, as the article brings up, that there was in MTV channels, they were dealing with J-pop specifically, and I remember when those were happening, and they had them subtitled and they had them unsubtitled, depending upon where you were. But if that was the case, we should be able to turn on the radio, or and yeah, just the radio specifically, and be able to hear any of these different voices, very commonly. We don't. And the place that you would find them, more frequently then is going to be now, the evolution after was it 1989, in the formation of the internet. We start seeing it, specifically with the big boom that happened in the latter part of the 1990s, with internet technology and the streaming, apparatus and leverage that was applied. Now now you're able to kind of turn on and see that. But how many American, mainstream music watchers, followers, are going to take note of any of that? How many? I would hearken to say, without doing the research, it is probably not a large, qualification. But does that discredit it, nor and does it slow down the market and the output that these artists have, from different countries and different cultures and around the world? Not just talking about J-pop or K-pop, or some of these other regions. I'm talking about just like things in general. Just music that's outside of the American, canon, the American discourse that's here, these boundaries, but then what? And how is it then that they're taking and reframing, or in other words, appropriating American rock standards, but they're expressing them through their own cultural ideals and means? And then what does that mean for identity construction? What is it that they're doing, and how is it that they're expressing their identity through the use and the rescripting, the re-narrating of American rock music? And so that begats the question has America's rock diaspora only gone in one direction? Because in other artistic forms, you might see it come back, and it actually makes a full circle. It comes all the way back around. So then those other cultures that are using American music are going to come back and then represent themselves in a different light, even though we can trace the history back to its American roots, if that was the case. But but then, and this is so interesting because it's a welcomed diaspora. It's not a forced diaspora, but it's one that's also then situated upon globalization. It's also one that's built upon commerce and the market sensibility, and it's one that's built upon trade, which goes back to globalization. Because it's the trade market. And then what is it that those goods, the Western goods that are exported to these different countries, that the music and the culture goes along with it? And that's what gets picked up. So then the argument comes back to, okay, so that means that these other cultures that are getting a taste of what is American culture, Western culture, if you will, are now wanting to appropriate those ideas because they see the market credibility for them, and it positions them along the lines of this, the first world, superpower that America continues to claim it to be. So America's nationalism, in a weird way, in a weird way, America's nationalism, gets played on an international level. Ooh, so the diaspora of American rock music then, gets appropriated inside these other cultures for their identity construction based upon these Western ideals. Oh, terrible thought, but it's true. It's like, oh man, it's not full assimilation because they haven't lost their culture, which is good. and but yet it's an appropriation of American rock that brings up, all these interesting, positions and leverages and expressions that we see. But then again, I argue back and say, all right, but why is it that American audiences, if it's American music, aren't open and see it? Why not? Where is it? You know, I mean, it didn't take me too long to, to kind of look up and to see, what's the survey that's going out there. But even when you do a general view of, like, okay, what's, the top Japanese, music that's out, it really goes back to like a theater performance. It really goes back to these larger, expressions, that are done stage represent. I mean, it's like, and the songs are so syrupy, with their soap opera themes that go on with it. It's nauseating. But that's what the culture is like. But then when you see, so this goes back to fun point. Then when you see things that have more of an American bent, and you're like, okay, I can at least understand this. And I don't understand the language, but at least I have some relationship to the aesthetics of the music. All right. So is that American aesthetic colonialism? Ho, ho. See what I mean? It gets complicated really fast. So, in those of us who are outside of, the academic arena of musicology, may not see all of these different nuances and subtleties that are presented, but they're there. And so, if we just look at it as just a general listener, it's like, well, what makes sense to me? And what is it that you're looking for? You're looking for the American fingerprint. You're looking for the American identity inside of the music that's exported to you for your ears and your enjoyment, from these other countries. You're looking for where's the rock, where's the form, where's the structure, where's the style, what is it that I know that I can actually say, yes, this is rock music based upon, an American franchise, identity and understanding. It's the McDonaldization of pop music, the McDonaldization of rock music on a global stage. And this is why when people say, talk about Russian music, they say, why is it always just punk? Well, what's closer? The UK, and who are they oppressing and going against? They're contesting against the government, which we're going to talk about next time. Because we have to talk about politics and, and its relationship to that and its framing for it. Because there is a reason why when you look at and listen to Russian music, the predominant style does come up as being, just punk. So I'm not saying that, we're gonna do a big profile on Russian music, although we should. um the necessity is there. We've also kind of, gone through the hoops of punk as it is, and I may just drop some stuff in it for fun. But in any case, let's jump into it. We're gonna listen to a little bit of One OK Rock, Tropical Therapy. And again, I'm going to drop the link in your notes so that way you can see it. But you'll notice something right off the bat as we get into this conversation with them, with the band. Okay, and here's the ads, which I knew were going to come up. They have a bunch of different stuff, but here we go. Okay. Another day here in the system, it's always on the plate. Take a shot of whiskey and some to de-escalate. I need a light in all this baggage, 'cause life is heavy Okay. So what's one of the first things you notice? You're singing in English. It's like, and this is a really, hot band. I mean, they've got I mean, the reviews and things are coming up here, talking about like people from all over the world. There's like comments coming from Germany, there's comments coming in from the UK, there's stuff coming in from South America. I mean, there's like they're all over the place. People love this band, right? And it borders on alternative rock. It's got its theme. Some of their songs are like really interesting. Like they have a real interesting one, Renegades, that comes up, but they're dealing with with common themes that people relate to. They're coming up with a humanistic nature that's there, but they sing in English, and it's really appropriated, this post punk sound that scholars like to talk about, from the late '90s into the 2000s, because the band is current. They love to talk about them and that light, and it has that that alternative rock, soft alternative rock feel, it's there. Their images, are played up to it. I mean, the videos are extremely well done, you know so you see this really playing to a Western audience that's coming up. And the fact that they're singing in English is like, that's like the first one that jumps out. But when you watch and you see, what they're doing, it's obvious they're not just playing to their community. They're literally playing to a Western audience. And so, but they haven't assimilated, but it's definitely, a large appropriation, and a musical appropriation, of the style, the image, the look, the feel, everything of these different, you know different groups. I'm gonna play, oops, we're gonna play Scandal, because now I want you to hear um the female group in contrast to this. And again, it's a K-rock band. And I'm going to drop the version in your notes that actually has the English as well, because it's subtitled in Korean and English, which is like so much fun. So let me see if I can call it up. Come on, let's go. There we go. I got to get it. Yes, with the English subtitles. There we go. So that way you see it. And I know we got to get past the we got to get past the ads, and here we go. Okay, it's a lot of fun, right? I mean, they got, and it's all females, so we gotta balance it out. And what I like about them is the fact that that they're singing in their own language. They're singing straight up. And the narrative of the song is, it's so sappy, it still goes back to that, it's a love song is really what it is, right? And just off the top of my head, I mean, if you want to think, oh, it's a terrible comparison, but but I mean, it's like it has the same leverage and levity that like Avril Lavigne has, and this and that whole, skate punk, kind of a skater rock, attitude that came, that came up in the late 90s, into the early 2000s. I mean, when was she popular? Like, yeah, like around, 2006, in that area, I mean, they have the same kind of a feel and tinge to it. So here's another level of appropriation, but again has not left then its cultural identity. And so, this is showing then, where rock is, taken its turn in the hands of what this this youth, this all girl band, has done. And it's speaking then to, like I was just, starting to finish up, a youth cultural, bend and a movement with it. But it has that really light, updated, bubblegum pop, kind of a feel that's really relevant and prominent, that doesn't go away and is really really popular. But they do so in their own, I mean, when you watch the video, it's interesting, their fashion, the design, it has this, off kilter kind of a look, which I know I'm using the word punk, a lot, but it really does, it has this punkish, fun, hodgepodge, motley-esque, look that's there. So they're not grungy and dirty. It's, but yet they're clean, they're proper, but it has this really kind of a slick, um view and use that speaks to a youth doctrine. It's like, you can be your own person, as well as expressing yourself through this musical lens that's here. And format wise, structure wise, I mean, it hits on all the same things, but it's a sappy love song. And we wouldn't know it if you didn't see the words and have the English subtitles that were going along with it. Where in contrast to one OK Rock, the difference there is that the guy's singing in English, so he's like telling you what's going on with it. So he can go the other extreme, of appropriation. So you have these multiple layers and levels that are there. And I'm gonna close this out with, if I can find it really fast, uh Ohui, because I want to grab them, in what, before we end up, and just, I'll drop them inside of the notes so you can see them, because we may just have to pick up with the Mongolian rock next time, because there's so much good stuff to get into, here. But this is their song, Karhu Kus. And this group just rocks. So let me get past, the ads that are here, and I'll drop this one in there so that way you can see it. Oh, this is a long ad. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to. Okay, here we go. So take a listen. When you watch the video, you're gonna notice and take a look at the fact that he's playing the single force paired, viol, and then the traditional drums, that all of these are mixed inside it. And you have people that are wearing their traditional, some of the guys, it's an all guy band, that are wearing their traditional wear, as well as those who are just like all dressed up in like all black punk, and not punk, and all black, hard rock. So it's and the drummer, pay attention to the drummer in this one. He's kind of funny, but it has all these different expressions that are there. So this is an amalgamation then. He's bringing together, the commercialized form of what rock music is inside of a Mongolian, discourse and discipline. So we'll have to pick up the phone probably next time and just kind of explore those sounds a little bit more. But I wanted to just end this in this at least here with you guys. Check the notes, check the links, check all the stuff. Listen to the music, it's good stuff, and I'm sure my playlist is going to be totally confused from here on out. If you have any questions, shoot me an email.